Hey, thanks for checking out my video lesson here. I appreciate you taking the time, really do. And so I've done previous lessons on Major Pentatonic, a few, and I've also done lessons on playing sixths. And I thought for this lesson it would be fun to do combine those. So we're playing some Major Pentatonic and throwing in a little bit of, making it sound a little melodic and then throw in some sixths, and then show you how to get all of this out of the chord shapes, which is what I always do. And so what we want to do here is get a little bit of music theory out of the way. So as I like to say, a little bit of music theory can go a long way towards helping us become better guitar players. So the backing track, which has the chords E, D, and A, the tonal center is definitely E, but it's not E major. It's actually E Mixolydian, and what that means is this. Well, we see the seven chord here, which would be a D sharp diminished in the key of E major pure. Um, does not exist in this song, and in fact, so it's a D major. The D major chord does not belong in the key of E major, and so that's the problem. And so we don't want to play any D sharp notes. And so we will not do that. And so what does that mean then? It's going to look more like this. Now we say, no, man, there is no. This is all these chords are not diatonic to the key of E major. And it's Mixolydian. And there you go. So there's no, the seven chord being a half step below the one does not exist here. And so what does that actually mean for us, like in application, like when we're playing major pentatonic? So take a look here. So this is a major pentatonic. This is we're in the key of E major. So this is our A shape. And so the diagram I've got there is just kind of showing kind of a basic. Okay, so that what I just played is just E major pentatonic. We'll talk about these triads like I always do. Triads, it's kind of shared by the A shape and by the G shape. We're kind of picturing a G-shaped chord here that is an E chord, but in a G shape. But it's also that very common major pentatonic box. You kind of see both. You see that box, and you see the G chord here at the same time. So I like to, a lot of times I like to, and I've mentioned this in other videos, where in addition to the major pentatonic notes, there are two in the major scale that are not part of the major pentatonic. One is the four, which is a half step above the three. That one. It's so great for melody. And then the seven, which is just a half step below the one, very nice also for melody, but we cannot play that because just what we just talked about. We have to play this flat seven actually. That's because of that D major chord, right? It's not a D sharp major or D sharp anything. It's a D major, and that's the D note right there. So instead of that kind of melody, we have to be careful and not play uh, that seven. So anyway, that's really important, and it's really important to be able to know, diatonically what the chords are for a major key, and then look at the chords in the backing track, or whatever track you're playing over, and and when you see that, so like if we were in, I should have went over this, but if we were looking back at the other diagram, why don't we just do that? Let's get rid of this. Let's go back to here. Okay, so once again, when we're in pure E major, then and we had a backing track and we knew what the chords were. And we looked at it, we said, okay, well, the only three major chords in E major uh, diatonically are, the E, the A, and the B. That's the 1, 4, and 5. Everything else is either minor or diminished. So then, so then as soon as we see that there's this track we're playing over, it has a D major. Well, that doesn't belong here, right? So That's what this is all about. All right, so then, yeah, so we're going to try to avoid. You may have done this before where you're playing over a track and you're like, wait, that seven I know is like should sound good. And if we play that guy over this track, it's going to sound bad. I mean, not just, like not sometimes notes that you play are not quite perfect or not, they're not money notes, they're not target notes, but they're passing notes and they sound okay. But that seven will not sound good. It needs to be the flatted seven. So there you go. And so then we go and we move over to, we're going to look at these chord shapes and we're going to talk about we're not going to go note for note like the solo that I did. It would take forever and there's just no point. It's more like the approach and do the major sections of what I was doing there. So yeah, here we go. So I have circled in blue, just like from my previous lesson or one of my previous lessons where I show how to navigate the pentatonic scale easily by out of these chord shapes, and I talk about these like these launching these 5-1 pairs as launching pads, So here's a E, and here's another pair of 5-1 pair, and here's another pair. Comes right out of the E-shaped E chord, right? Here's the A shape. Here's the E shape E chord. Yeah, all of those you can see right there in the diagram how they work. Now, let's go up here and just cover the rest of them. So here's that E shape. Whenever you have an E-shaped chord, whatever it is, these two, these are a 5-1. And they all have that same sound, and so you can launch from there. By the way, we just landed on an E. Okay, so yeah, so then the first thing I do in this solo is that's the first one. And so what we're doing there is, remember, 5-1 3. So on the 1 and the 3, we're going to play the 4 and this 5. So we go, I'm like rolling my index finger, and then I do a hammer on to the 4, and I pick that one and do the same exact thing, except and here. You might notice a couple of these little moves here, or these note choices are I kind of borrowed them in a way from the Knockin' on Heaven's Door first solo. So and it sounds really good. I think it sounds pretty melodic. So this one's interesting. That's when it's on the E chord, and you notice like when the song is starting, it's like it's doing the E, then D, then A, and then back to E, and then before it hits the E to come back in again, right there when it comes back under the E. So I'm hitting this note right when the E chord comes, and if you think about it, this E chord, those two notes, so that note is the 5. So I'm targeting one of the notes of the chord, the 5. And then the next time, that is actually the 3. Look at a D chord, D major. So the second time I'm targeting the 3, the major third of the D chord, and that's when it's on the D. And then the next time, which sounds really cool when you do this. I thought it sounded good. And this is targeting the 3 of the A major chord. And so when you look at this, you go, well, how do you know that's a 3 without like doing a bunch of thinking and figuring, finding an A chord, You know, there's an A here and there's an A up here. But what we want to do here is look at this A chord. That is a C-shaped A chord. A on the B string there. That's your root out of this triad, right? And that is the 3. So target the 5 on there of the E chord. Target the major third of the D and the major third of the A. So it's interesting that I never targeted, out of all these, I never targeted the 1, the root, out of any of those chords. And that's pretty cool, actually. I think it's a melody trick, I guess. And to be honest, when I came up with this, I just did it by ear. You know, I mean, I know where I'm at and all these notes in here. I know they would some notes would sound really good in here. And so I came up with this and I thought it sounded great. And then I analyzed it and like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. We're targeting the 5 and then a 3 and a 3. So that's the first part, right? So, and then when I play it through the second time, something like that. I think if I were to do it again after I listened to this, I would do it differently. That's another way to do it, where we're hammering on that 6. I actually like that better than the way I did it. So when it gets down to this, so I did a lot of, you know, like exactly what I did in there doesn't really matter because I would never play it the same way 2 times in a row. I just can't. But just, you know, riffing around major pentatonically with whatever sounds right. So then at some point the progression starts up again in E, right? And now I'm doing 6. So there's your E. And so what we're doing, this, I have a whole lesson, like if you're not sure about 6, and if 6 are kind of mysterious, I'm not going to go deep in this lesson. It would take forever. But I have another lesson that goes into it, and it really shows how easy it is to pull 6 right out of the chords. And so in our case here, this is the E chord, right? So it's, and they're, what we're doing is so simple. We're just playing. If you look at this chord, that's a 3 and that's the 1. So we're playing the 3 and the 1 out of these chords. So there's just 3 chords, right? So we go, and then we do a D, again, right out of the D, right? And then we do an A. Now we move to the different set of strings. So instead of the instead of the G and 1 and G and the high E, we're playing the D and the B string. That's that A like we looked at. And then, and all that is here, let's do it this way. We're going back to E. So this is an E with a 6, playing 6, and this is an E. Same thing, right? Different set of strings, but that's our 1, that's our 3. We can slide into that. So, but I'm ending on that, right? But let's walk up. So again, watch that video on 6. E major, F sharp minor, G sharp minor, and A, right? And we could keep going up like that, but in the song, this is what we did. So when we got to the A chord, then I decided to just, and now we're you know, we went from the A down to the E, and then I started up again. So the second time I did that, instead of like sliding into or up into the D, I slid down and then slid up again to the A. All right, so that was it, and then yeah, so we did it 2 times through, and you know, I walked down. Then the next section, basically, this is kind of cool because right here, you're on the E, right? This is your 1. And we're starting the chord, progression is starting over again, back to the E. We have this triad, right? We're hammering on the 6, which is the same as hammering that way. Using this triad, it's the same thing. So I think what I did was some stuff like that, but it's all around this. Yeah. So and then what did we do from there? Then so let's say we went up to some. So this position is right out of this E shape, right? And then I did this hammer on, same thing. It's a hammering on the 6, and that's kind of a little melodic thing. It's pretty simple. And if we just look at it, the E shape here, this is a 3, right? This is your 1 5 1 3 5 1. So after I was done with this, that's a 4. That's a 3 to 4. So I went 4 3 2 1. Very simple, actually. You could make it more complicated, but anyway, it sounded pretty good. And then what did we do there? We slid up to the E major triad and the higher. Oh yeah, and then so that same like motif, we did it up here. And for me, I think when I played it in that playthrough, there was a couple of like my bend was off a little bit, and like I think my string fretted out or something. So it wasn't perfect, but I think I'm used to playing this in D. So here would be your D. This is your E, right? And really, so remember this triad? This is the same triad, man. Right up here. That's an E, right? That sounds pretty good, right? And then did it again. Did it again. And then that puts me, look at this, right in this position. That's the 1 from this shape. So remember that 5-1 pair that's right there? So I ended up right here, which kind of puts me in a nice position. So I did some stuff like that. Then I did this descending thing, which was very melodic and very much, well, not E major scale because we can't play that 7, but we played the flatted 7. So like if we were in pure E major, here's your E or your 1, we would go to the 7 here. But we can't do that because of that D major chord. We have to do this. This is a flat 7. And so anyway, I think I did something like wait a second. And then I just descended down on this B string. Something like that. So again, this is your E, this is your 1. Can't play the 7, so we go down to the flatted 7. And from the flatted 7, there's only a half step to the 6, whole step to the 5, whole step down to 4, and then a half step to the 3. And then I just naturally. And I don't remember all of what I did there, but probably did a bunch more riffing around. And I'm looking at my notes here. So we did that, and then down the scale. Yeah, then I think I just did a. I don't remember the whole thing, but again, note for note doesn't really matter. It's more of the, we overall, like we did a repeating motif, that sounded very melodic. We did it in this position, and then we did it in this position. Right, so we did those things, and when we did the six, we moved down, and then we ended up in this position, which put us right here on an E. So this, I'll just show this real quick. That's pretty cool. And when we're in this position, that's a one, that's a two. We're bending it up a whole step, which is 2 frets, to the 3 of inside of this shape, and that 5, right? It looks like I'm holding down both strings. Well, I kind of am with my pinky, but I'm only plucking the G and the B string, just the 2. You could do that, but we're just doing the G and the B, and so you can do that, and you can do the same thing down here. There is something else I wanted to show. Yeah, so this is really not necessarily part of this, the solo that I did, but when we do this and we move up into this position, so watch what, I think I leave this out in some of my other lessons. I don't mention it, and you might be wondering, like if you tried it, your fingering, if I just do that, then naturally my middle finger wants to go there, but at that point I can't do this. I can't do certain riffs because of my positioning. I really need this finger to be there. So watch this. I'll do. See that? So instead of putting the middle finger down, I just kind of come over and then move that index finger up there. So let me do that again. It's something that I had to kind of learn, and you will learn too. The proper finger in there, be able to make the transition, and then be able to have your other fingers available. Um, and then at the very end of the video of the playthrough, I started rocking out with the minor pentatonic, which, by the way, with Mixolydian, it is so cool that all of your major pentatonic sounds so damn good. Remember, flat the seventh though, and then the so I encourage you to play along with this. Try out these different major pentatonic things that I showed you, and do your own thing with them. Refer to the other videos. I'll link all the relevant previous lessons in the description, and play some minor pentatonic on there too, because it sounds good, man. That's basically it. Hope you enjoyed this. Rock on.